Hello, and welcome to another episode of Lingerie and Lattes. It is a little late today because I got caught up in the festivities of Thanksgiving and now Black Friday. However, I wanted to share another subject in order to keep everything consistent and allow my people who are interested in these subjects to continue learning. Today, I want to talk about the idea of intimacy being important both in an emotional sense and a physical sense for a romantic relationship. If you don't know who I am, I'm Olivia Dramaga. I founded Vulcanability, which is an alchemical process for women and men to create self-intimacy and from that a place of awareness connect to their partners in order to build long-lasting love. So now let's get into the subject because it almost feels like there's this badge of honor for certain people that sex isn't important in their relationships, or it's not a big deal if they're not enjoying themselves in a romantic relationship because it is somehow lesser than or not as equal as, let's say, date nights, being a good partner in terms of, let's say, regular day-to-day life, like taking care of the laundry or the trash or the mechanic stuff, whatever, or even being a good father figure, a good caretaker, nurturer, all those things. So it almost feels like some impressions in the community are that physical intimacy are not that important in a romantic relationship. And I definitely want to challenge that idea because if we think about emotions, emotional bonding, as well as physical intimacy, those two really feed into each other. When we become physically intimate with our partners, it is a show of vulnerability between two people. And because there's monogamy in as a value and as a principle for these two people, this is the partner that they've chosen. So if we act as though physical intimacy is not very important in our relationships, we are almost missing out on this beautiful space of the relationship. If we think of the one person and the second person being able to expose themselves not only through the mental aspects of sharing their feelings of expressing their needs, their frustrations, their requirements from their partner, but also now being able to surrender the body to the other person and surrender the body to the experience that these two people are having. That takes a really large amount of maturity in order to get to a place where two people feel extremely comfortable with each other in order to enjoy physical intimacy. And also, it takes a maturity and an exploration of the self to figure out what your personal wants and desires are. Now, many people think that as soon as they have figured out what works for them in the bedroom, that's enough. That's just like the kind of like the formula, the recipe they have to follow. But that's not true at all because every experience, every moment that you approach the same act, it's going to be a completely different scenario, dynamic. You have grown as a person, the other person has grown in their own way, and the experience will be in itself completely new. So if we approach it from that perspective every single time we do want to become intimate with our partners, there's a lot more room for play. It doesn't become mundane because you now see this as approaching a blank canvas every single time. And even though, let's use this analogy within monogamy as the same paints, you're going to have the same exact colors every single time because it's the same person, right? The paint here is the analogy for, or the metaphor really for the other person, your partner. So if you come to a canvas with the same paints, let's say every single day, 5 times in the week, you would expect to have a different painting. You would expect to have different shades of paint. Let's say a different hue of pink versus a green in your previous one. Even if you're painting the exact same replica, there will be nuances. So I think this is a beautiful parallel with intimacy and relationships because even though the person is the same, you maybe are very, hardwired into what you know works for you, and maybe it's extremely vanilla or you feel comfortable with it. It's just kind of like a very straightforward way of having intimacy. It can still be very different every single time if we prioritize the idea of sensuality in our relationships as much as we do emotional bonding. Now, biologically, if you are physically intimate with somebody, you create emotional bonds as well to them, and vice versa. If you create emotional bonds to someone, you're more likely and open to receiving their physical pleasure as well, because now, again, you feel vulnerable and you've been able to open up and trust the person. So if you're able to open up and trust the person, and you've shared yourself intimately, that builds trust. And the moment that you build that trust, it just continues to grow, especially if you are with one person on the same page and you're working towards your dreams together. So in order for us to have truly magical relationships and the relationships of our dreams with the person that we love in this world, we really have to explore this idea that physical intimacy is just as important as emotional bonding. And if we come from that place, we now start to question, what do I normally do in the bedroom? Do I even know what I enjoy in the bedroom? What does my partner like? Does she or he know what they like? Maybe they don't. I have had people who believed that they knew exactly what they enjoyed, and then lo and behold, doing a little bit of inner work and a little bit of, again, play and exploration with themselves and their partner, they learn that they have other desires. Or a lot of the times, I'm also hearing from my clients that they have desires, but they're too afraid to really explore them because it feels scary. It feels like it's going to bring up traumas they've experienced before. So if you're familiar with my alchemical process of vulcanability, it's meant to integrate traumas that you've experienced subconsciously, unconsciously, this world and this lifetime or others, and allow your body to be freed of those traumas that are currently being activated anytime you have physical intimacy, even if it is with somebody who respects you and loves you. Because a lot of the times we misinterpret certain feelings or expressions that may happen in the bedroom. And it's a very, again, it's a very vulnerable container that you two are creating for yourselves. So it can feel really scary to offend somebody or to feel like you are being attacked by somebody because let's say you wanted to explore something and one person likes it, one person doesn't. And now they don't know how to express that to the other person, or maybe they're not willing to accommodate. How could they become comfortable, or are they willing to see what was a part of the discomfort in order to unravel that a little bit more? And I want to caution here because this is all about consent and intimacy. So when I'm sharing things like one person didn't like it and they can ask themselves, how can I become more open to this idea? I don't mean that from a place of disrespecting a no in the body. I really mean that as maybe there was something that wasn't exactly tied to the physical act itself that has caused the discomfort. Maybe it was a mental memory that popped up in the same moment because of the same tension or pressure that they felt. Maybe that, and again, this other person who's experiencing all of these sensations may not be aware of why they don't like it. They just might be like, well, you know what, don't do that ever again. So consent is important. Saying don't ever do that again is important to respect. And also, yes, and we want to explore areas of our discomfort and ask ourselves why. The more we see physical intimacy as a doorway for more emotional connection, for more communication, open communication between two people, for a stronger relationship, it's really, for me, it's like the glue of the relationship. It's where you're able to just take in all of who you are, strip it bare, and be with the other person in a way that you've not allowed to with other people in the world. So hopefully this has been enlightening to consider, how do I behave in the bedroom? Is it important for me to have a good sex life with the love of my life? And if the answer is yes, you're on the right path. If the answer is no, ask yourself why. Why do you think that physical intimacy is lesser than emotional intimacy with the love of your life in a monogamous relationship? Why do you think you're not currently prioritizing your sensuality? Perhaps ask yourself, if me and my partner was free to explore our desires, how would that actually enhance the relationship? Because if we want to take a step back and take a wider view of love, a lot of what happens in the bedroom is almost like processing things you can't really express verbally. And that's again beautiful for two people who are in love and are committed to each other for the lifetime. That gives you a place to process emotions, sensations that maybe you feel almost scared to, or you don't have the words for them. And a lot of the times through physical intimacy, you don't need the words. You don't need to unpack, sit down and have some tea with your partner and ask them all these like deep, dark questions. Through the physical intimacy, those can actually get transmuted because you're working with the Kundalini energy. And if this is someone you love and somebody you're committed to, then that energy is flowing between you both. So any sort of traumas that you're intentionally or unintentionally releasing because of the prioritization of physical intimacy with the love of your life, that can get really juicy because then you're working through issues without this idea of like counseling or sitting down and hashing out every single issue you've had with this person or trauma or discomfort from your past life and all of those things. Instead, it's almost like you're not bypassing it by any means because a lot of the times physical intimacy can bring up those suppressed emotions. It can bring up the things that you haven't unpacked yet in yourself. So what you're doing with physical intimacy with your partner is not squashing down feelings that you don't want to feel, but you're rather bringing them to the surface and without too much thought, because again, in physical intimacy, if you are connected to your own body, you're not really thinking much, you're just kind of experiencing. That's the best way I can put it. In that experience, that's when you're transmuting the traumas into something that is golden. And once you're able to actually transmute the trauma into a golden nugget, that not only enhances the relationship, but it almost it puts like a like this what is this called? Like a lock on it. It's kind of solidifies it. It really links one experience to another. It connects you to your partner in a way that released your trauma and instead encoded new truths into you, new truths about pleasure in the body, about feeling safe with another person, about experiencing connection beyond emotional into the physical. So hopefully this has been educational as usual, and I hope to see you at next week's Lingerie and Lattes. Have an absolutely amazing end of your Friday and weekend. Thank you.